how to rig them. Pretty simple, really. We're going to start off with plastic worm. One of my favorite lures to go out on the water with. I'd never leave the dock without it.
Obsessed. Definitely obsessed at a very young age.
Okay, it's time for a commercial break and a word from our sponsors. Let me tell you, this spider wire is something on here. No stretch, you can feel any hits. Whoa. I got one, son! Oh, man! Oh, man, Hunter! Yeah, son! Yeah! Look at this! Spider wire. Nothing gets away. Oh, back in the boat, son! Back in the boat! I told ya, it may be indoors or outdoors, and I told you not to call me a liar. But it's back indoors again, and I think the next couple segments sometime we'll get out in the outdoors.
I always got up Sunday morning, I watched the Bassmasters, I watched Roland Martin, Bill Dance, Hank Parker, all those fishing shows back in the mid-90s, and really looked up to those guys and just fell in love with the game, fell in love with not so much catching the bass, but how to catch the bass, and really would realize at a young age that I'd love to be a professional tournament angler, but I just love figuring out the puzzle.
Early spring, the bass are just going to get out of the deep waters. When the water's about 50 to 60 degrees, we'll start heading back. Start heading for the coves to get back into spawn. And all these fish are coming into the ends of the northern coves.
Starting out fishing started at a really young age. We ended up moving into town, got into a house right beside a ball field and a creek. Started fishing that creek a lot with live bait, catching creek chub, rock bass, things like that. And started getting the neighborhood kids coming around. I actually started up a worm farm. I would sell the neighborhood kids a dozen night crawlers to get $1. And I'd try to sell as many night crawlers as I could. And I'd eventually just go to Walmart every week or go to the local hardware store and buy fishing tackle with the money that I profited from my worm farm.
The regular is only $2.50 a bag. This is $5 a bag. These tournament strengths are a lot better work, and they smell a lot better to the fish.
Fletcher was always a good kid. He'd come in here when he was just a small child, and he'd stand and look at the fishing tackle for, it seemed like, hours at a time. He would make a game plan, then he would disappear. About 10 minutes later, he'd be back with a whole pocket full of change, and he would make his purchase. Fishing hooks, sinkers, bobbers, an occasional lure, but at that time, lures were a little pricey for the young man, and I think he did a good job, and he's made the people of Newcomerstown proud that we've got a professional fisherman living in our own little town, and it's quite an honor.
Eventually that led to having little tournaments on the creek. We'd have anywhere from 3 to 8 men tournaments on the creek. We'd have like a 4-inch limit on the fish, and live bait was allowed, and you'd bag your fish up. We'd weigh them in. I actually never lost one of the tournaments at the creek. I prided myself on the fact that I won every one and always beat the neighborhood kids, and everyone would put in like $1. So if I won the neighborhood tournament that week, that was another $4 I could put towards my tackle.
We would take the boys on camping trips. Fletcher wouldn't be swimming, he would be fishing the entire time. He kept a logbook, and inside of it he kept all the information, the lures, the type of fish.
And I'd always take notes on the bass that I caught, how big they were, what I caught them on.
And I would say, Fletcher, why don't you just have fun? Guess he was.
So as a product of all of this knowledge that I gained through Bassmaster magazines and all these fishing shows and just my own fishing experiences, I decided to make Fishing with Fletch at age 10. That was going to be my fishing show when I grew up, was going to be called Fishing with Fletch.
Live in Fletcher Shryock. Fishing. Flipping with the worm. There's a pitch. Hi, fish. And fast motion. I'll try to hit in the same spot, but it flips a little hard. Right there in the same spot, son. Check it out. Be my guest.
And Hunter was actually the one pressing the record button.
Hey, pause it. Is it pause?
On all of my Fishing with Fletch episodes. And it's funny to, look at where we are today, and Hunter's still the one behind the camera. Hunter didn't fish too much as a kid, but still, he's still behind the, still pressing the record on the camera.
So kid right here, Hunter Shryock, they begged me all the time to show this on TV, but he caught a 2.5 pound bass on this little bait here. They thought it was pretty big. He still wanted me to tell you guys.
You got to remember, this is a kid that grew up without the internet, that didn't have all that information at his fingertips. Everything that he wanted to learn, he had to read the magazines. He had to wake up on time and watch the bass fishing shows. And that's what's so impressive about Fletcher's. He knew so much as a kid that, he just started making his own TV show.
But you don't want to do that when you make a mistake on a Carolina rig, because it could mess up your whole day of fishing.
One of the reasons why I did that was because I wasn't able to go out on a boat all the time. I wasn't able to go fish bass tournaments all the time. My family provided me with a lot of opportunities, and I'm thankful, but I wasn't necessarily raised in a bass fishing family. So there's a lot of times I'd spend at home not getting to go fish, or maybe it was snowing out in Ohio, and I didn't have them opportunities to even go to the creek because everything was iced over. So that's how Fishing with Fletch began.
Okay, colors for worms. Bright day, bright color. Dark day, dark color. So if you have a partially cloudy and partially sunny, you'd want something that has like pumpkin seeds, like a brown.
I fell so in love with the process, about how to catch a bass, about fishing in general.
Back in 1995, we bought a used bass boat. Had a trolling motor on it. I don't believe there was a time that Fletcher wasn't in the boat when I backed it into the water, and he would circle around in the bay and stuff until I got the vehicle parked and come down to the ramp, and Fletcher would pull up, pick me up, off we go. I never really ran the boat. Fletcher always did.
I was very adamant about the products that I used because I spent so much time researching and learning about all the new techniques and all the new products, so I felt like what I was using was the best at the time. And it's funny to look back and see that I fell in love with spider wire at such a young age, and here we are 20 years later. They're my main title sponsor, best fishing line out there, and it's just funny to look back on that, even when I made a commercial for spider wire at age 10. That's something, you can't make that up.
Fusion spider wire. Spider wire is pretty strong. Okay, instead of making braided lines, they came up with a new super line. It's fused. What it is, it's like 136 particles. Spectra. Inside this, you put it on that bed, and that mother bass comes along and inhales that thing, you better have spider wire.
Saying that I started fishing, in 2011, whenever I was able to get a Bassmaster win at a Bassmaster Open and just blow up on the scene, is what a lot of people thought. I just kind of came out of nowhere. And looking back a little bit, I did, but when you look at my whole life, really I didn't. I guess to me it's not, I mean it was a shock, but it wasn't a total surprise considering how I spent my childhood. And I put everything that I could into it. I mean, fishing was and is life. 20 years later, see the same thing going on as what it was whenever I was 10 years old. Really, the Shryock Brothers Untapped have been around since like '96.
Nice to meet you, folks. Well, see you on the next episode. See you later. We'll show you how to flip, pitch, and cast. Coming up next.